Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started, and we're very happy to see all of you here this evening with us. And we're just letting persons in, but we want to get started because we're excited about this topic, and we want to get everything that we need to get um, in the time that we have. So we're going to get started. All right. So I trust you had a good day and that you're excited and ready to learn more about this topic. I am very excited. I'm sure you can hear that because of our speaker and this topic that we were been thinking about for a while. And a lot of persons are interested in this area. And so we're very, very happy that we're able to do this topic tonight. Welcome to our monthly webinar. And we want to say welcome to those persons, special welcome to those persons who are here for the first time. We're very, very happy that you're here, and we hope that this will not be your last time being here. And I hope that you are ready to learn how to improve your health and to do what it takes to survive this heat. I'm sure you can see the topic on the screen, and we're very excited to bring this to you. Remember to mute your mics so that we can hear exactly what our presenter is saying, and we will give you an opportunity to ask your questions. Either you can raise your hand and we'll allow you to ask your question, or you can put it in the chat, type it in the chat, and we will get to it after the presentation. We're also streaming live on Facebook tonight, as always. And then we also we have the recordings of this and all of our other videos on our YouTube channel. And the name of that YouTube channel is Feet with the number 4 Life 242. You had to put that 242 in there so you make sure that you're on the right channel so you can get the information that you need. We invite you to go to the channel, watch the videos, and then also subscribe and put your notification on so that you can get information about when we put new videos up. We'd like to know where everybody is joining us from. So we invite you to write in the chat where you're joining us from tonight. We know we usually have persons from Freeport and Cat Island and Bimini and all those places. So we love to see that. So let us know where you're joining us from, and we'll be happy to recognize you and to welcome you. So let's begin our program because we have a lot to cover, and we want to make sure that you get everything tonight. So we'll begin our program with a short devotion and prayer by Pastor Lyndon Williams. He is no stranger to us. I think he has done this. He has done our devotion for us a couple of times before, but he's a husband, a father, and a pastor for almost 30 years in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He currently serves as the pastor of the Ephesus Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he hosts a radio show called Focus on the Word. He holds a Master of Arts in Pastoral Theology and describes himself as a knowledge junkie, a nature lover, and a technology enthusiast. So let us welcome Pastor Lyndon Williams with our devotional and our prayer. Go ahead, Pastor Williams.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you. I want to share some thoughts with you from the book of Psalms, and I'm taking you this evening to Psalms 139. The psalmist David, beginning at verse 13, says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. When I awake, I am still with you." I like this passage. I normally would read it from the New Living Translation because it speaks of a God who is intimate, a God who cares, a God who sees, who knows, who hears, who's well aware of everything that is going on. The psalmist says, "You created my inmost beings. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Think about that. When you look at the complexity of the human body and you look at all of the things that make us unique, even though science sometimes think they understand what this particular gene or this particular protein is supposed to do, and they go and make some changes so they find a drug to treat this sickness, and they say this will affect this particular cell in this particular way, there are always side effects, which is an indication that they didn't quite get it right. They made a lot of progress because the human body is so complex. And that is why the scripture says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. But something else, they're saying that I read somewhere recently that the way the brain operates is more complex than what they had initially thought. It's not in the process of the way the brain works, is not in a complete sequence. They said things are happening in many different, let's call it connections, than they had previously thought. And why is this important? The amount of information the brain holds, considering the amount of energy that it uses, if we can understand it, then what we would be able to do with computers is, like, in my own words, millions of degrees faster and better. We would be able to store so much information than what we can presently do on a computer disk. You heard about data centers around the world that they are building. Well, guess what? If they could figure out how the brain functions and store information the way the brain does, they would be able to massively shrink those data centers because the brain holds information unlike anything else. And it's so small and it uses so little energy. So think about how fearfully, how wonderfully, how complex the human body is just by looking at the brain. And I want to share verse 17 says, how precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Verse 18, New International Version. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. Now, I don't know about you, but I want you to take the time and go back by the seashore. If you get a chance, go to a place like Pink Sand Beach and Governor's Harbor. I will never forget how powerful this thought came to me than when I walked on the beach. It's called 7 Mile Beach in the Cayman Islands. And the Lord allowed me to have that experience because what happened is sometime in 1992, when I had an experience, when my father passed, a friend of mine suggested this passage to me. And that beach came back to my mind. 7 miles of white sand. If you ever took up a handful of sand, think you would like to count the grains? I don't think so. But God's thoughts outnumbered the sand by the seashore. Imagine the Sahara Desert, where there are literally miles and miles of sand. And yet God's thoughts toward us outnumber the sand by the seashore. That's a lot of love. That's a lot of concern, care. That's a lot of concern. And then Psalms 24, verse 1, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So if the earth is the Lord's, that means that you and I are simply caretakers. We are managers of all that God has given us. And what that means is that we must find the best ways to take care of the resources of this little planet, Earth, that we have. So I trust that we'll remember two things. One, we are fearfully made, and God is always thinking about us. And the second one would be that the earth belongs to God, and we must take proper care of it. Let us pray. Father, thank you for your love and your care toward your children. We pray, oh God, that we would always remember how valuable we are in your sight, but also that you have placed us here to take care of this planet which you have given to us and manage its resources. May we be faithful in the job you've given us to do while remembering whose and whom we are. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Wonderful, Dr. Williams. Pastor Williams, thank you so much for that devotional. I was about to do that summary, but you did a wonderful job. Remember that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and this planet belongs to God, and He has given it to us as stewards to manage. So awesome. Thank you for that reminder. And we're very, very happy that you were able to do that for us. Now, tonight, this program generally speaks about diabetes and diabetic feet, but tonight we're expanding it a little bit more to cover chronic diseases in general. So we want to recognize, we see persons in the chat from New Providence, and we're having persons put where they're from in the chat. So while we do that, we're going to see the introduction part. So persons living with diabetes, foot complications are some of the most costly and the most feared, and also most common. In recent study, the International Diabetes Federation showed a study that persons feared death more than amputation. And 25% of persons living with diabetes can expect to have a complication at some time in their life. So we know that every second count when it comes to diabetes. So 1.2 seconds, someone develop a foot ulcer. Every 7 seconds, someone dies from diabetes. And every 20 seconds, a limb is lost or amputated due to diabetes. Here in the Bahamas, we've seen our numbers also climbing with these complications, and we want to stop that. And so this is the reason why we began this program. And we are happy that you are here to join us and to be able to spend this time with us. Everybody know it's the summer because it's so hot. It is hot. Everywhere you go, that's all you hear. So climate change is not just an environmental issue. The melting ice caps, yes. Bad hurricanes, yes. Rising sea levels, yes. But it's also about our health. In fact, this has caused a public health crisis. As the world has gotten hotter, our bodies face challenges, especially those persons living with chronic diseases, even especially diabetes. When the temperatures climb, the risk of dehydration, heat exhaustion, blood sugar swings also increases. Someone with diabetes, even on a simple summer day, can become dangerous. A simple summer day can become dangerous if the body struggles to stay cool and to balance their blood sugar. I had the experience yesterday of going to Commonwealth Bank, and at the time I was there, I just saw that they had called the ambulance for the security guard at the door. Man, I passed him on my way in, and he was sitting down, so I just figured, they were kind of casual at that bank, so I didn't think much about it. But as I passed, he was sitting down, and a few minutes later, I saw the EMTs came in and was tending to him. So when I left, I asked what happened. They were like, "Oh, possibly he had a stroke." So I had to go back again today. When I asked again, I asked about him again. They said, "Oh, when he was seen in the hospital, because they took him to the hospital, they said it was a heat-related event. Apparently, he was dehydrated and wasn't feeling well, but he's doing much better." So we see that this is common. It has been happening a lot more, especially this summer, that has been recording record temperatures. And so we definitely see that these heat events have been affecting not only individuals, families, caregivers, and even the community. So we definitely want to be able to empower you tonight with the information that will help you to know what climate change is, how it affects persons with chronic diseases, why people with diabetes are especially vulnerable, and what practical steps persons can take to stay safe and healthy, especially during this time of year. So I am very, very, very excited to introduce our speaker tonight because I don't know if he may not be a stranger to you, but he is Dr. Chrispen Gomez, and he is a family medicine physician. If you don't know him, he is a passionate physician, and I could speak to that personally because when my mother was sick, he may not remember this, but he actually came to my mother's house. And I think this was during COVID too, I believe. He actually came and he saw my mother at home. And up to the time she died, she would always talk about how she appreciated that and how she was so happy that he was able to come and see her in the house because she definitely did not want to go to the hospital at that time. So he is a passionate family medicine physician. He received his medical training at the University of the West Indies in Kingston, Jamaica. And then he went on to do a doctorate in family medicine and residency at UWI Bahamas campus. He currently works as a consultant within the Public Hospitals Authority at South Beach Clinic and the Agape Chronic Disease Clinic as well. He's also an associate lecturer at the University of the Bahamas campus. University of the West Indies, Bahamas campus. And he has completed extensive research on various topics. I was very interested to see some of them topics that he has done research on. So I definitely want to see some of those studies. Dr. Gomez is married. He has 4 children and 1 grandchild, and he's a member of his church's parish council. He didn't tell me which church, so he can probably tell us that when he comes on. He's passionate about education and prevention, and he's a great supporter and advocate for persons living with chronic diseases, especially those with diabetes. He's a member of the Bahamas Diabetes Association, and he actually sits on the board of directors for that organization. Let us get those emojis going and let us welcome Dr. Chrispen Gomez as he presents our topic, Beat the Heat, Climate Change, and Chronic Diseases. Let us welcome Dr. Gomez.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mitchell, for that introduction. Can everybody see my slides?
No.
Yes, we can see them. Go right ahead.
Okay. So thank you for that introduction, Dr. Mitchell. Actually Roman Catholic, so I go to the Church of the Resurrection. So today we're going to talk about something that affects all of us, and that's climate change and how it affects our health, especially in terms of long-term illnesses. We hear about climate change in the news, but many people don't realize how directly it impacts our body, our families, and our communities. My goal today is to try and make this topic simple, practical, and relevant to everyday life. Everybody has received a text likely within the last few months on WhatsApp that actually had a heat advisory and saying that the temperature has changed, it's much hotter today, and for everyone to stay indoors between particular hours. All of these are examples of climate change and what is occurring due to it. Now, by the end of this session, you'll understand what climate change is, how it affects our health, how it makes certain chronic diseases worse, who is most at risk, and what can be done as individuals, families, and communities to stay healthy and to stay safe in this day and age. So, climate change means that our weather patterns are shifting, and we're seeing hotter days, we're seeing stronger hurricanes as we've seen with Dorian. We've actually seen rising sea levels that are occurring in places having more earthquakes, stronger earthquakes, and then that resulting in tsunamis and different things occurring around the globe. All of these things causes various changes, like I said, and some of these changes also include changes in our air quality. These changes don't just affect the environment itself, but they affect our bodies. And when the world around us changes, our health changes too. So it has been reported that since the 1950s, that the global mean temperature, so the average temperature has actually increased by zero point 0.6 degrees Celsius. It may seem like a small number, but this amount is enough to cause ice to melt and cause various changes in the globe. So this rise in temperature has led to different effects, including loss of productivity from persons in terms of agriculture, has led to soil being degraded and not being as strong as it used to be, has led to degradation even of the ecosystem and the environment, such as acidification of the oceans from the rains, reduction in fresh water sources, and also a loss of our biodiversity that is occurring, as well as depletion, as many of us know, of the ozone layer. And these are things that we really need to be concerned about. In fact, it has been reported that greenhouse gases are expected to increase by 52% by 2050. And they did research, and the Intergovernmental Panel actually found out that 23% of the global greenhouse gases are from transport. And of this 23% that is from transport, 75% of it is from road traffic constituents. So that's from emissions from cars and everything like that is accounting for a lot of the changes that we are having. So we need to be aware and we need to do a lot to actually help this situation. So when we look at climate change, we look at its frequency. And as we see that it's getting hotter and hotter by the day, by the second. And one of the most dangerous consequences of global warming is extreme heat. And we see that with Dr. Mitchell just talked about the gentleman who was at work and became exhausted because of the heat. And they found out that 345,000 heat-related deaths occurred in 2019, and that occurred in persons older than 65 years of age, which was 80% higher than the average in 2000 to 2005. So within the last 10 years, we have seen, or 10 to 20 years, we have seen 80% higher increase of heat-related death. So this is something that we need to be concerned about. And from 2019 to 2025, as we see, it's getting hotter. So this rate will increase and continue to increase if something isn't done. And the higher temperatures are occurring more frequently. The temperatures that used to happen, the high temperatures that used to happen every 100 to 300 years, are now happening every 3.5 years. So these things are coming much quicker and quicker. And these effects are both direct and indirect. So now, here are some of the few major ways climate change can actually affect our health. Hot weather can cause dehydration and heat exhaustion. Poor air quality can make it harder for us to breathe from air pollution. Hurricanes and flooding from extreme weather conditions can interrupt medical care and cause damage to homes. With hurricanes, we know that electricity is off, and if you're on medication, especially if you're a diabetic, that has to be refrigerated or kept cool. These create problems, make the medications don't work as effectively as it needs to be. So it affects us in many ways. In terms of food and water shortages, it can affect our nutrition in terms of what we eat. If we use water and it's bad water, we can get infections and different things out there. We have stress that actually occurs from disasters, and that can affect our mental health. And there are changes in the environment that can increase the rate of infections. As we know, when there's more rain, there's more water, we have more mosquitoes. When there's more mosquitoes, we can get certain conditions like dengue fever, and all of these things we have to be aware of. All of these things we have to take note of. And when we have things like this, then we need better vector control. So we need spraying of the areas to try and keep these things as minimal as possible. But all of these things make chronic illnesses harder and harder to manage. So, hot weather can make hard work harder. Now, not hard work, but hot. So, hot weather can make hard work harder. So, when you're working in the heat and out in the heat can cause us to get dehydrated. When we become dehydrated, our blood becomes thicker. When our blood becomes thicker, we can have an increased risk of heart attacks or strokes. And this is because as the blood gets thicker, it's more likely to form clots. And these clots can actually give rise to heart attacks and strokes. We also have fluid imbalance that can occur because of the dehydration, meaning that if we don't keep up with our drinking, our electrolytes, and our fluids, then it can also cause worsening of heart failure. And it could cause something what we call arrhythmias. Arrhythmias are irregular beats of the heart. And we have certain chemicals in the body like sodium, potassium, chloride that have to be in certain quantities. And with dehydration, these can cause these elements to actually go higher or lower. And because of that, if they're out of the normal range, these things can lead to irregularities in our heartbeat and something what we call arrhythmias. Now, we all know about stress from storms. We had a storm that occurred that impacted Freeport before. We had a storm that infected the Abacos and all of those storms. We had persons on those islands. So we were calling, trying to figure out if they were all right. The water level was rising. All of these things caused stress on us, and it caused stress on the persons who were experiencing them. So the stress from storms or losing property can also cause a rise in our blood pressure. And people with heart disease often fare worse with things like this, especially during heat waves. Like I say, also with the increased blood flow because of the higher pressure, this causes an increased demand on the heart, causes the heart to work harder. When the heart works harder, this can cause many problems with the heart. It can lead to heart attacks, it can lead to strokes, or it can lead to something what we call cardiac ischemia, which means that the blood flow to the heart is not as good as it's supposed to be. And this is especially so if persons already have pre-existing cardiovascular disease. So this just gives us a little bit of idea of how the impact of climate change affects our cardiovascular system. So we all need to be aware of it. And the body tries very, very hard to keep the body temperature at the right temperature. So the body has to work hard for this. So there are also different ways that the impact can occur on our blood pressure. So we have something from air pollution. And air pollution is smoke, fog, smog, all of those things in the air from cars, automobiles, all of these cause air pollution. With the air pollution, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, they have various different things like particulate matter that are in the air that are small substances that we can't see, smaller than sand, and we inhale them. And when we inhale them and they go into our body, they can cause problems with our blood vessels, which we call endothelial dysfunction. And this can increase our risk of having strokes. So it is very, very serious in terms of how climate change can affect our health. And it affects our health in more ways than one. So we saw how it affects our cardiovascular system. We also see how it affects our blood pressure. Now let's see how it affects diabetes. So Heat can cause the blood sugar level to rise. And this is mainly because of dehydration, and it affects how the body uses the insulin. And many people with diabetes notice that their numbers change during hot weather. So if persons monitor their glucose on a regular occasion, they see when it's usually hotter than normal that their blood sugar values are variable. And this can actually lead to problems what we call hyperglycemia, or the blood pressure being too high. And this is through various different means. One of the means is that when it's hot, the blood vessels dilate. When the blood vessels dilate, we have more sweating. The sweating is a way for us to cool our bodies down. But by us sweating to cool our bodies down, we lose fluid. By us losing fluid, we also lose electrolyte, which causes imbalances, and this causes us to be dehydrated. With us being dehydrated, this also causes the blood to become thicker or more concentrated. When this happens, the blood flow, as we know, is slower. And if the blood flow is slower, it can actually impair insulin moving to the body to move glucose where it needs to be. For two reasons. One, because it's moving slower, and two, because more blood is going to the skin to try and cool it down. So the blood has other functions to do. So it causes the body not to be able to function as great as it needs to be. And so this reduction in blood flow causes insulin sensitive tissue not to be as sensitive or not to react to the insulin as much as it needs to be. Now, when we talk about dehydration increases something what we call vasopressin in the body to actually allow, or to see if it can allow blood to flow much better and smoother. When this happens, this actually can cause something what we call gluconeogenesis, which means the liver kicks in, starts to produce sugar. When this happens, this makes insulin also not to work as good as we need the insulin to work. So all of these things are taken into account. And persons with diabetes, because of the imbalance of the electrolytes, can lead to something what we call metabolic decompensation. And for persons, can cause their sugars to go high. Persons with type 1 diabetes can cause something what we call DKA, or diabetic ketoacidosis, and cause them to be admitted into hospital. With persons with type 2 diabetes, can cause something what we call hyperosmolar syndrome. And in those persons, it can actually also cause them to go into hospital because of high sugars. So in terms of the heat and how it affects in other ways, we know that with power outages can spoil insulin that actually needs refrigeration. So if the insulin is not being able to be refrigerated, then the product is not working as good as it needs to be, and it won't control your sugar as well as it should be. And these can happen during hurricanes, when we have power outages, or as we all know with the light company, every so often we can have power outages that can last for any amount of hours. And insulin is stable at appropriate temperatures. So when the temperature changes, the heat absorption, or the heat actually affects the absorption and the shelf life. So if it's at room temperature, is not a problem. But when the heat hits, even the house is not at room temperature, and the temperature and everything rises. And that extra temperature is what causes the insulin not to work as effectively as it's supposed to. So they also saw that there is a link between insulin and other tablets that you can use for diabetes that can also cause an increased risk for the blood sugar going low, especially during extreme heat. And this is also because of the vasodilation, or the blood vessels getting larger. The insulin is absorbed more quickly. So if the insulin is absorbed more quickly, it moves the sugar much more rapidly. If the sugar moves more rapidly, it can cause the blood sugar level to drop too low, can cause persons to fall out, have a fainting spell. Sometimes it can even cause this in persons without diabetes because of the heat. And sometimes we may see a number that looks high, but because we are dehydrated, it's what we call a false high number. So if we're on insulin and we add extra insulin to account for this increase in blood sugar, that can actually be too much of a correction, or what we call an overcorrection, and cause our blood sugar to drop, causing us to have a hypoglycemic event, low blood sugar, and also being admitted into hospital. Another thing that we have to know with persons with diabetes, persons with long-standing diabetes, especially if it's not controlled, have an altered immune system. The immune system is the system in the body that responds to any infection or anything that is going on in the body. So if the immune system is not functioning as good as it's supposed to, then persons with diabetes are at increased risk of having a worse cause of any infectious disease. So these are things that we need to be concerned about. These are things that we need to know, especially if we have diabetes or have family members who have diabetes. So now there are various other effects of diabetes and climate change. So we have something called the autonomic system in the body. So the autonomic system is the things in the body that we can't control, such as our heart rate, our blood pressure, breathing. Those are things that we can't control. We can hold our breath for a while, but after a while, it automatically starts us breathing again. So these are things that we cannot naturally control. So sometimes with persons with diabetes, because of high blood sugars, it can actually affect what we call the autonomic system, causing something what we call autonomic neuropathy. When this happens, that means persons have impaired thermoregulation responses. So what that means is that when it's hot, the body doesn't respond the way it needs to. So it either responds in one or two ways. One of the ways is that it doesn't produce enough sweat for the body to calm down, so you have more heat in the person, or sometimes it causes persons to sweat too much, and it causes them to become dehydrated because they're losing so much electrolytes in the sweat. And there are various factors or things that contribute to it if somebody has diabetes. The main ones are the duration of diabetes. So the longer you have diabetes, the more likely this is to occur. If you have higher sugars or your sugars are not as controlled as we need it to be. And also if persons have pre-existing problems where they have a condition what we call peripheral neuropathy. And peripheral neuropathy means persons have numbness and tingling to the hands and feet. So if you have numbness and tingling to the hands and feet, then these things are more likely, especially during times when it's hotter than normal. So now let's see how the heat affects the kidneys. So in terms of the kidneys are very, very sensitive to dehydration. So hot weather can cause the kidneys to strain. So the kidneys to work even more. And when the kidneys work more, the kidneys actually have injury because of working more than usual. And once the kidneys has injuries, this can actually progress to what we call chronic kidney disease. And so that's why we tell everybody during days that are hot, we want you to drink even more than you will normally drink to keep the body hydrated. One of the ways sometimes it's difficult to tell persons the amount of liquid to drink because different persons have different type of lifestyles. Some persons sit down all day. Some persons are more active on the road. Some persons are actually in the heat, climbing and doing different things. So one of the ways that is easy, just drink enough water so your urine is the same color of water. Once you know your urine is the color of water, then we know you're hydrated enough. And the heat, like I said before, causes these electrolyte imbalances. And once these electrolyte abnormalities occur, causes the urine to become more concentrated. Once the urine is more concentrated, it can lead to increased risk of kidney stones. We also have problems with flooding, and flooding can actually contaminate our water sources, and this can increase our risk for infections. So people who may need dialysis may miss treatments during hurricanes. Climate changes make kidney care much, much more challenging. And as we talked about air pollution doesn't only affect persons with hypertension, but it also affects persons with chronic kidney disease, as it causes inflammation of the body, and this inflammation causes what we call vascular complications, so causes the blood vessels in the kidneys not to work as good, and it can lead to what we call acute kidney injury. What, if not treated or corrected, can go on to causing chronic or long-standing kidney problems. And these are things that we want to prevent. So now let's look at the impact of climate change on obesity. So when it's very hot, as we know, persons exercise less because they just don't want to sweat. They just don't want their body to feel the way it does. So after the
Yeah,
storm,
Robbie
healthy
got them
foods may be
on
harder to
30,
find
I
also.
know.
So if we have a hurricane,
Yeah,
it's harder for
it's
us to
on for her.
find healthy food due to flooding that may occur, due to availability of food sources. All of these can occur. These lead to us having to get more what we call calorie dense and processed food. So because of food insecurity during those times, we get foods that are lower quality, so they don't have as much nutritional values as the food before. These foods can actually lead to malnutrition. So instead of us eating from the ground, we eat more processed foods, and this can actually lead to poorer quality in our diet, causing other problems and leading to obesity and affecting us if we already have diabetes. So the risk of having less fresh foods, or even with the fresh foods being more expensive because they're in higher demand, it makes it less available to everyone. And so stress can lead to us overeating also. If we're stressed, then we usually eat more. And when we're stressed and eat more, we usually eat bad food. We usually eat the pizza, the ice cream, the chocolate, and all of these things can affect and impact obesity. So all of these things increases our risk of gaining weight, increases our risk of high blood pressure, and it also increases our risk of diabetes. So these are things that we need to be aware of. And how stress causes weight gain. Stress causes the release of something that we call cortisol, and cortisol actually leads to weight gain in the body. So now we've seen how climate change affects our cardiovascular system, how it affects hypertension, how it affects diabetes, how it affects our kidneys. Let's see how climate change impacts respiratory conditions. So for people with asthma, climate change is a big challenge. Hot days and poor air quality makes breathing harder. We have all seen the advisories about the Sahara dust. So you know when the dust is coming, and then those days, persons with asthma or any chronic lung disease come to hospital more frequently. We also have problems with smoke from fire, dust itself, and even after storms, it can give rise to mold, which can trigger attacks if persons have asthma. And many persons have noticed their asthma getting worse during certain seasons or even after bad weather. So this is climate change affecting their lungs. So fires and smoke make something what we call particulate matter. And these trigger bronchospasm. And what that is that the lungs start to constrict and relax or go into spasms. And for persons with asthma or persons with something what we call COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, it causes them to have a harder time to breathe and causes them to have to make frequent visits to the hospital or to the clinic to be treated. And as humidity increases, because it's much hotter, it increases the risk of mold, it increases the risk of dust mites, it increases the risk of allergens and seasoning worsenings of certain lung conditions. So hurricane, as we know, increases dampness because of the rain. We know in the Bahamas we have flooding everywhere. Water gets into our house. It leads to a major mold proliferation, and this can cause an increase in viral infections. So this heat stresses our respiratory rate because we breathe faster. Our demand for oxygen is much more. So it impacts us very widely in terms of climate change. Now, in this diagram that you see here is a diagram of a human hair. You also see a diagram of a sand particle. And now you see these little blue and these little red dots. These are what we call particulate matters. So this is how small that particular matter is that it can actually wrap around the hair, the strand of the hair. So these particulate matter are very, very small, so small that we cannot see them. So we are breathing these in and we cannot see these particular matters. There are two types. There are one what we call PM10, just because of the size, 10 microns. And these include dust, pollen, all of these things that can occur. And then we have our particular matters, which are 2.5 microns um, in diameter. And these are things that come from car exhaust, combustion, and all of these things. And these are things that we breathe in every day, or we can breathe in and not even know that we are breathing in. And all of these things can actually affect our lung health. So these are things that we need to be very much aware of and how climate change affects everything. So let's look at our mental health. In terms of climate change, is not just a physical phenomenon. It carries significant psychological consequences with it. Exposures to hot weather can make people more irritable, as we know, because the body works harder to maintain a stable internal temperature. Persons become more stressed. This is the time where we have more fights, more persons arguing. So this is a stressful time when it's hot. The thermoregulation process of the body, trying to regulate the temperature because it's hot, consumes a lot of energy. And by consuming a lot of energy, it leaves fewer resources for our brain function, which can result in us having mental fatigue, being more tired, us having reduced alertness, not aware of what is going on, and having more difficulty in terms of us concentrating on certain things. And we've found that because of it, persons have higher risk of suicide, especially during the hotter months. This can also disrupt our eating. We eat more, but it can also disrupt our sleep. When it's hot, sweating a lot, most persons unable to sleep. Our poor sleep quality further amplifies our irritability. So somebody can say something to us, we're stressed. We hash out at them because of aggression. So heat has many impacts on our mental health. So these are things that we actually have to be mindful of because heat can make us very impatient as the day goes along. And again, with all this heat and everything else going on, we know sometimes we have some financial stress after disasters, and this financial stress can lead to anxiety, can lead to depression, and all of these things can actually cause problems. Once they have hurricane, if we don't have nowhere to stay, causes stress, causes anxiety. This is how climate change affects our mental health. And we know that also with it, we have vector-borne diseases that occur from the hurricanes and we have various different things that occur. So we have increased hurricane, increased rain, increased wetness. This increases the transmission of certain infections because we cause mosquitoes, we cause ticks to arise, and these lead to persons possibly getting dengue fever and other infections. We have warmer temperatures. Because of the warmer temperatures, the viruses like the warmer temperatures, and the warmer temperatures can actually increase our risk for getting a lot of these conditions because of the vectors are there more. And plus the impact on the hurricane actually and the weather and climate change can affect the habitats where a lot of these organisms live. So if the habitats are affected, then these organisms will come into our habitats. I don't know if anybody has seen any messages, but you have places where you have alligators that used to stay on in the water coming on land. You have places where you um, have bears coming towards persons' houses. So it's affecting their habitat, and because they're affecting their habitat, they're disoriented and they affect our habitat. So this is a great, great impact that can be done because of climate change. Now, in terms of climate change can affect our medications. As I said earlier, because of heat and because it's more hotter than normal, it can actually affect our insulin if we're diabetic and on insulin. But there are also other medications that can be affected due to heat. One of those are diuretics. These are what we call water tablets. If you're on any diuretic, especially if it's hot, you're working out in the sun, it can and it's possible for it to increase your risk for dehydration, increase the risk for the blood volume being lower, increase the risk for us having fainting spells. So these are things that we should be mindful of and that we should keep hydrated. If we're on medications that we call beta blockers, these can impair heat dissipation and can actually increase our risks of getting heart attacks, especially during heat exposure. We also have other medications that we call anticholinergics and depressants. And these can actually affect the way our body regulates heat. And when this happens, this can lead to higher risk of heat-related comorbidities. Now, even though we're talking about medications and even though we're talking about how medications can impact our life, even with climate change, even if you on any of these medications, do not, and I repeat, do not stop any of your medications without consulting your primary care provider first. So now we talked about the various different conditions and how the various different conditions are impacted from climate change. Let's find out the persons who are most vulnerable and the persons who are most at risk. So we have the elderly, persons over 65, children, persons with chronic illnesses, persons with low income families, and certain coastal communities, especially in many areas of the Bahamas. Since we're on the coast, we're more at risk for hurricanes. So we are persons who are more vulnerable, and people who rely on medications or medical equipment that are also have to be at certain temperatures are at higher risk. So if you're infants, so that's persons, usually say infants, persons under one, most times for infants under 3 months, persons older than 65 years of age. All of these persons we are concerned about. So if you have any chronic disease, such as cardiovascular disease, any of the conditions we talked about, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, kidney disease, diabetes, any lung issues such as asthma, COPD, any mental issues, all of these puts us at higher risk of being vulnerable, especially during climate change and when the weather changes. So we need to be aware, we need to watch for climate change, and we need to be cognizant of these things. So, is there any benefit at all to changes in weather? So there are some benefits to changes. Some of these benefits, especially we have benefits with heat. But this benefit is not because of climate change. This benefit is because of exercise. So if we exercise, the heat that we produce actually improves our cardiovascular health, improves our insulin sensitivity, especially persons with type 2 diabetes. So it makes our body much better to actually manage our diabetes. So that's why we stress exercise so much in persons with any of the chronic disease. It's found that if you're exposed to cold, it can do many things. One, it can elevate your energy expenditure. Also, they found that cold weather causes the body to produce something that's called brown fat, a fat that's mostly found in children. But they also found it in adults when they're exposed to cold temperatures. And what brown fat does is it actually makes the body use heat more. So by using heat more and using it more effectively, it causes us to burn adipose tissue and it causes us to lose fat, which is good. They also did studies which actually showed that short term, not long term, short term exposure to heat actually improves glucose. It improves metabolism in persons who are overweight. And that's only short-term exposure to heat. So those are some of the benefits that we can get, but we know that the risks are much, much more. So it's better for us to actually stay safe. So there are several different adaptation strategies we can actually do. This is being cool during extreme heat, listening to advisories that we find. So between the times when the sun is very hot, that's usually between 10 and 4 o'clock, to definitely try and stay indoors as opposed to being outdoors. If you are a person who work outdoors, then we try to say that you split your work. So you go to work early, so start work from 4 or 5 o'clock and work up to 10 and then take a break until 5 o'clock and then resume your work and after 5. So we avoid you being in the heat. We also advise you to drink fluids, keep yourself well hydrated. Sometimes we don't even keep ourselves hydrated during months that are cool. So it's also difficult sometimes during the hot months for us to keep hydrated, especially if we're active. So we can actually set reminders. We can have these jugs with water that have different lines and different times so we can remember for us to always keep hydrated. Other strategies, we have to try and mitigate air pollution. Like I said, about 75% of the 23% of greenhouse gases that were destroyed was from traffic and different things. So we can do things like carpooling and other things to try and reduce the amount of emissions or harmful emissions that go into the air. And we can reduce burning any material that causes smoke. And all of these things are moving things from our yard and other areas that can increase the risk for fires or forest fires by us throwing bottles on the side of the road. And when the heat hits it, it causes fire in the different forests or the different areas that have a high concentration of trees. And these are certain things that we should be mindful of, certain things that we can do to prevent it. Thankfully, for the last couple of years, we haven't had any fires at the dump site, but that also used to be a major source of air pollution, especially with persons in that area, leading to many lung issues, even with persons who do not have any pre-existing lung conditions. Also, we want you to maintain healthy and sustainable lifestyles, because healthy and sustainable lifestyle means that your blood pressure is controlled, means that your blood sugar is controlled, meaning that if you have any condition that deals with the heart or deals with the lungs, you're not smoking or you're not drinking alcohol or anything that can adversely affect you. So we need you to sustain healthy lifestyle in order for us to adapt properly when the climate changes. We also have to go and do policies to reduce air pollution. reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this is more at a public level and at a governmental level. And also more research needs to be done on climate change and how it impacts our health, as climate change is something that is kind of new to us. So we're just getting used to it. So these are things that we need to do. And there are many other strategies that can be adapted in order to help us with this climate change. So there are many takeaway points that we have that y'all can go home with. Climate change affects our health in many, many ways. It makes chronic illnesses harder to manage, but with awareness and with preparation, we can reduce the risks and protect our families. So remember, if we have chronic diseases, be mindful if we are persons who are higher at risk, because then if we are more vulnerable, then we need to be proactive. So we're younger, if we're older, if we have any of these chronic diseases, we need to be more proactive. And one of these ways of being proactive is actually coming here, listening to the talk, getting information, just to get your palate wet so you can go and research it and find out other things that you can do to help yourself and help yourself in terms of climate change and how climate change affects us by actually getting education. And we all know that heat, pollution, and extreme weather, as we have seen, worsening nearly all chronic conditions. Because we saw about cardiovascular disease, we saw about hypertension, we saw about mental disease, we saw about lung diseases, we saw about diabetes, so it affects all or nearly all chronic diseases. So this is something that impacts us. And even if we ourselves do not have one of these chronic diseases, we know someone, a friend, a family, someone that does have one of these chronic diseases. So these are things that we need to make
Is
them
Reno
aware
there?
of in order to
Is
make
Reno
things
there?
better. So I thank you very much for your attention during this presentation. Any questions?
Yes, good evening, Dr. Gomez. Awesome presentation. Question, do you recommend alkaline water as opposed to, I call it regular water? What type of water would you recommend? Which is best?
So great question. The question was if I recommend alkaline as opposed to regular water. Um, my take on water, whether it's alkaline or regular, is that once you drink water and swallow it, everything goes into the stomach. And the stomach has hydrochloric acid in it in order to help and digest food, digest different things that you may eat. So it actually kind of neutralizes it once it gets into the stomach. But whatever preference it is, I have no problems with, because the one thing is that we want you to keep hydrated and keep well hydrated.
Okay.
Thank
Because
you.
you hear them say alkaline is not good, or alkaline is the best. So I'm struggling. I'm struggling, I don't know. I'm trying to lose weight, but I'm struggling.
Yeah,
Sometimes I drink alkaline, sometimes I drink regular. So okay.
no, it's not better or worse, because like I said, the body has a way of regulating everything. So whether you drink something that's more alkaline, less alkaline, once it reaches into the stomach with the gastric acids, it actually
Right.
neutralizes everything and makes everything one pH, so it can
True.
actually go through the body.
True. But they say a lot of stuff, right? So okay.
They do.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
most
Good
welcome. Thank
evening.
you for that question.
A pleasant good evening, Dr. Gomez. I would like to know about the Gatorade. I mean, I know you talk about it and you said not to drink it, right? But I really want to know about it because I mean, it's really hot. And when you drink that man with a cup of ice, that is beatabomb.com. I'm wondering if it's okay to have a cup of Gatorade. If not, like the lady was talking, let me piggyback off of her alkaline water. You can drink water with a little lemon in it, and it makes the water alkaline or something to that effect. I don't know if it's true or not, but is it true?
Okay, so that is several questions. I'm going to answer each of those questions. Um, Firstly, I didn't quite talk about Gatorade or anything to drink or not to drink. But in terms of drinking, especially if it's hot, especially if you're working out in the sun and you're doing a lot of sweating, then you would need electrolytes. So you would need different chemicals like the sodium, potassium that the body needs. So things like Gatorade, Pedialyte, coconut water, apple juice, those things will help and actually restore the electrolytes that the body is using. So if you're sweating a lot, working out in the heat, exercising, then you may need something that would actually restore those electrolytes that you are losing. If persons have certain diseases or certain conditions such as diabetes, we might have to be mindful of how much sugar that we intake. If persons have certain conditions like high blood pressure, we have to be mindful of how much sodium or how much salt we intake. But those things, once under certain situations, are actually beneficial for persons and beneficial for the body. Now, as to your next question in terms of adding lime to water, um, lime can be added to water. It actually boosts vitamin C because it has a lot of vitamin C. Sometimes it adds flavor to water. Some persons just don't want to drink plain water, especially if they have diabetes and water is better and they don't need to add any sugar to it. Because lime has citric acid in it, lime would make the water a little bit more acidic as opposed to alkaline. But thank you very much for that question.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. Excellent presentation. Excellent. We jump right in on our questions, so that's good. You did an awesome job. You covered quite a bit, quite a bit. So we're asking other persons if they have questions. We have a lot of commendations in the chat as well. Awesome presentation. Thank you so much. So if there are any other persons who have questions, then
Yes.
we would invite you to go now. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone, Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Gomez, and everyone. Dr. Gomez, okay, you said based on persons going through different circumstances and situation, it causes your cortisol to rise. I think that's in the form of stress or whatever it is. And causes you to regain the weight. How do we go about dealing with the cortisol, controlling the cortisol level in terms of and deal with the situation all at the same time, which posing the stress?
Okay, good question. Yes, I did say that cortisol can actually cortisol is a stress hormone that the body has during any time of stress. And cortisol has many effects. One, cortisol can actually cause our blood sugar to raise, so can cause our blood sugar to be higher. It can also cause us to have problems sleeping. When we're stressed, we don't sleep as much. And it can also cause us to gain weight because sometimes when we're stressed, we're eating more. Also, because we're stressed, cortisol is like a steroid. So all of that can actually help us to or cause us to gain weight. In terms of managing weight with stress, the thing is that we actually have to manage our stress. And there are many different ways to manage our stress. Exercise that I always promote There's always one way to manage our stress. Exercise actually releases endorphins in the body, actually reduces our cortisol level, even if our cortisol level is high. So it helps us in order to improve our stress, improves our relaxation. It also helps in improving our sleep quality. Besides that, there are various different relaxation techniques that we have, such as breathing exercise. We breathe in for a count of four, breathe out for a count of four, do that for a minute. Listening to relaxation music. Sometimes we have to address our stress in terms of what it is wholeheartedly. Um, Sometimes it's good if we talk about our stress or talk to other persons so they can actually offer solutions, or even sometimes not even offer solutions, but sometimes just for us to have a listening ear. And sometimes when we hear ourselves talk about what is going on, sometimes we find solutions just by talking about it. So a lot of the ways to reduce the cortisol level is by us exercising, talking about it, and finding other ways to reduce our stress. And also finding when we have stress, finding healthier ways to manage our stress, meaning that if we are stressed, instead of eating ice cream or chocolate cake, then look for apple, look for pear, look for more healthier things, more healthier choices to eat to help us manage our weight and manage our stress. But also, if you're having difficulty and none of those things help and those things are difficult to do, then you can also see your primary care physician who would work with you and help you through different strategies that you can use, or even send you on to other persons who may be able to help and assist with what is going on. Thank you for that question.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? Okay, Dr. Gomez, I would like to if you can just go over one more time. I know you talked about the effects of the heat on diabetes and all the other body systems. What are some of the things that what are symptoms that should alert persons to know that they should get help or intervene? Like you hear stories now, persons who, I had a person who was walking doing ministry, walking on the street, and they were not feeling well. So when they had to stop and go to the doctor, and they told them, you have to come off just all out of the, outside and go home in the air condition and just drink and stay in the cool for some time. So sometimes persons do not remember, or what is the easy way for persons to remember what are symptoms that may be of heat conditions, that they know that when it's time to get help or when to do something different. Because a lot of times you don't want to wait until you get to the point where they have to go to the hospital or something like that. Maybe they could intervene earlier, like that. So what are symptoms that persons should watch for, and what can they do about it?
Thank you for that question. Very good question. There are many different symptoms that persons can see. And sometimes those are symptoms that the person may not see, but other persons who are next to them may see. Some of them deal with the brain. In terms of the brain, those persons may be a little bit more confused, have an altered speech. If you see them more agitated than usual or talking out of their head, or even if they feign loss of consciousness, all of these things can give us clues that something is going on. Sometimes we can actually tell ourselves that we actually feel hot. So if you know that you're feeling hot and you're in the sun, then those are things that are red flags. If you start to feel dizzy, if there's problems with your vision, the vision starts to seem blurry or starts to feel like it's fading or getting darker. Those are different indications that something is going on, that we should get out of the heat, go in the cool. Like I said, if we're working in the heat, we shouldn't be in the heat between the hours of 10 and 5. So either before 10 a.m. or after 5 to make sure that we're not in direct heat. We can also see changes in our sweating. So if we see that we're sweating profusely and our shirt is getting wet, then these are indications that we're losing a lot of fluid. And if we're not drinking enough fluid, these can be things that we can be mindful of. We have different things that occur in terms of things that we call vital signs. We may feel our heart racing a little bit faster. We may feel a little bit short of breath or may be breathing more heavier than usual. We may feel a thick, throbbing headache. And all of these things are things that can actually make us more aware that say, hey, something is going on. So I tell everyone that you know how you normally feel. So if you feel anything that feels different from what you normally feel, then you should stop and check it out before you continue or regain what you are doing. But thank you for that question.
Awesome. So we have another question in the chat that says, how much water is recommended for maximum hydration? How much water do you recommend, or what is the easy way for persons to know how much water to drink?
So now this is always a tricky question. Because the amount of water recommended for a person depends on various other things. So the amount of water that you recommend depends on your type of work, depends on your body habitus, depends on if you work indoor, outdoor, depends on if you have a high activity level or a low activity level. But generally, if we were to just give a ballpark figure for anyone who can actually use, we would usually say 8 glasses of water per day. So that's 8 ounces glasses of water per day. But I usually tell persons to also for them to have an idea is make sure they drink enough water so their urine is the color of water. So if you see your urine is more dark brown color, then that definitely means that we are not drinking enough water and that we are dehydrated. Thank you for that question.
Awesome. Another trick also is if persons can do half their body weight in ounces, that's an easy one too. So half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, for example, you would drink 100 ounces of water. And you find out how many cups that is by dividing the 100 by 8. So that's the amount of cups that you would drink. So, and then of course, because of the heat and your activity, you may have to even get more than that
Oh,
because you know, based on that, you may be sweating more, you may be, you know, going to the bathroom more. So you can, but it's a good estimate to think of. And it's easy to calculate. So if you weigh 100 pounds, then there'll be 50 ounces. If you weigh 200 pounds, then there'll be 100 ounces. Start there and then add some more. All right. So do we have any more questions? I don't see any more questions in the chat.
A pleasant good night. Dr. Gomez,
Okay, go ahead.
what if you drink like a gallon of water a day? Do you have frequent urination, like a constant urination straight through the night, or you just have it straight through the day, however it is, and you constantly drink that 1 gallon a day? Is it going to affect your body in any which way, or it's just a normal thing?
say it one more time. I don't quite understand the question. If you drink 1 gallon of water a
Okay,
day,
if you're drinking 1 gallon of water a day, do you have frequent urination, like you go to the bathroom all night or you go to the bathroom all day, however the urination is? Is it okay to drink 1 gallon of water a day? Is it okay to drink that much water? Does it affect the body in any which way?
so it would determine on your body size, your body habitus, the amount of work and everything that you're doing. 1 gallon is about 128 ounces, which is about 16
Mhm.
cups of water.
Ounces.
So it would actually depend on various other things in terms of your weight, any other condition. What type of work are you doing? Are you in or outdoors? It may be appropriate, um, dependent. It may be a little bit too much, but we'll have to work out all of those things to actually find out in terms of your case if that amount is adequate for you.
Dr. Gomez, I also I definitely that person should definitely be checked because you know one of the symptoms of diabetes is drinking a
Frequent
lot.
urination.
So and drinking a lot too. So they need to see Dr. Gomez or see somebody to make sure that you know they are this is because of the temperature and all of that, and it's not something else going on that's driving that. So that's one of the things that I would also recommend that they get that checked to make sure that or everything is good on that side. Um
Correct. Because
yeah,
diabetes could cause it a urinary tract
as
infection. So there
well.
are various other things that can cause you to urinate more frequently than normal.
And then if that is your amount that you should drink, all of us should to help preserve your sleep, we should stop drinking at a certain point in the afternoon, you know, probably not after 7, 8 o'clock. You don't want to be consuming such large volumes of water because that will disrupt your sleep. So if you're drinking your water, so a good way to do it is if you get your first thing in the morning, you get 2 glasses, like when you get up, and then you may have your breakfast, and then you have another 2 glasses. So try to spread your water throughout the day rather than trying to drink it all later in the day. And you want the majority of your water to be consumed during the earlier part of the day rather than the later part. Because once you're getting ready for bed, you really shouldn't be drinking that much water because it's going to disrupt your sleep. It's going to cause you to be up all night. So it can definitely affect your sleep. So all of those things can help with that as well. Okay,
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
no problem. Okay, I think Dr. Gomez, I think we are good to go. I don't see any more questions. I don't see any more hands raised. So we just want to say a special thank you to Dr. Gomez, who did a fantastic job, as I knew he would. When I thought of this topic, I thought of you right away. And so we're very grateful for you for coming. My husband is here with me, and he said he appreciates this topic and this talk for the practicality of it and also the social value, the relatability of the topic for a lot of persons because it's very relevant at this time. So we're very, very happy that you are here. And we want to thank all of our guests who are here with us as well. Want to thank you for coming and for sticking with us. And we want to say thank you. For any persons who are here for the first time and you want to be on our invite list, you can just put your number in the chat, your name and number in the chat, and we'll be sure to put you on the list so that you get an invite for every meeting. We meet every second Thursday. This actually is off for us because of independence. We had to shift things around a little bit. But we definitely wanted to get our meeting in. So, but generally we meet on the second Thursday of the month. The login information is absolutely the same. So you can put us in your calendar and you'll be right on time for, I think it's the 13th of August will be our next meeting. So we'll be right here with another topic that will definitely help you improve your health and promote healthy living. We want to invite, I don't see the pastor here anymore. We will invite Elder Mitchell to come and give us our closing prayer as we end our meeting tonight. And we want to say a special thank you to everyone again for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. Very, very relatable presentation. The information was made palpable. We can see it all around us, touch it, and relate to it very well. Let us pray. Father, thank you for this opportunity that we've had to educate ourselves, to be better stewards of the body you have given us and the world you have allowed us to live in, to see how we relate and we coexist, and how treating each better is for our betterment and for your glory. We pray that we will take this information in and not just hear it and let it pass through, but may it inform our experience as we continue to live and to improve and to do a little better with the information that we have. Please keep us under the umbrella of your protection. This evening we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Everyone, good night. Good night. Thank you for coming. And we will see you next month.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
I love you, Dr. Mitchell.
So good to see you.
I know, right? Now I go to my bed. Bye.
Okay.
Okay.